The council chamber on Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. 12 representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy sat around the great table. None of them spoke. They all stared at the battle reports from the Vega sector. The reports were impossible to believe. The hegemony fleet, 500 of the most advanced warships ever built, had been destroyed in 4 hours. Not damaged, not defeated, completely destroyed. And the force that destroyed them was 13 human ships. Admiral Vexathara was the first to break the silence. The humans used weapons we have never seen before, energy frequencies that our sensors could not identify, technology that should not exist. Admiral Korath of the Drakmari shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Perhaps they found hegemony technology and used it against them. No, said Admiral Zekmor of the Reptilian Coalition. He was an old soldier with scars covering his green skin. I have seen hegemony weapons. What the humans used was different, more advanced. Council leader Talvar stood up slowly. Talvar was a celestial, a species that looked like tall, thin angels with silver skin. The Celestials were the oldest and wisest race in the council. Talvar had lived for 800 years and seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. The question, Talvar said, is what we do now. The humans have clearly been hiding their true capabilities. The question is why. Admiral Vexathara made a clicking sound with her mandibles. They were afraid. They knew that if we discovered their technology, we would take it from them. Or, Admiral Zekmor said quietly, they were planning something. The chamber fell silent, again. The idea that humans might have been planning against the Council was disturbing. Humans were supposed to be grateful for Council protection. They were supposed to be loyal. We should bring the human admiral here, Vexathara said. Question him about their technology. Learn their secrets. And if he refuses to answer? Korath asked. Then we make him answer, Vexathara replied. Her voice was cold. Humans owe us a debt. They will give us what we require. Talvar shook his head. I do not think that would be wise. The humans have just proven they are far more dangerous than we believed. Perhaps we should approach this differently. You suggest we negotiate with them? Zekmor laughed. They are one small planet. We are 12 species with thousands of worlds. Yes, Talvar said, but they have weapons that can destroy our fleets. That changes the balance of power considerably. The argument continued for hours. Some council members wanted to demand human technology. Others wanted to attack Earth before humans could become an even greater threat. A few suggested trying to make peace. While the council argued, a message arrived from Earth. It was addressed to all council leaders and came with the highest priority codes. President Lisa Carter appeared on the chamber's main screen. She looked calm and confident. Behind her stood General Brooks and Director Rodriguez. Their faces showed no fear. Members of the Galactic Council, President Carter began. I am speaking to inform you that humanity's debt has been paid in full. The hegemony threat has been eliminated. Our obligations to the Council are now complete. Admiral Vexathara stood up angrily. You will not decide when your debt is paid. The Council decides that. President Carter smiled. Actually, Admiral, the original agreement was quite specific. Humanity would provide military assistance when requested until the threat to Council space was eliminated. The threat has been eliminated. The threat was eliminated by weapons you hid from us, Vexathara accused. You deliberately deceived the Council. We used the resources available to us, President Carter replied. The agreement did not require us to share our military secrets. Council Leader Talvar stepped forward. President Carter, the Council, is prepared to offer humanity a new arrangement. We could share advanced technology with you in exchange for access to your weapons systems. President Carter's smile grew wider. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Humanity has decided to pursue an independent course. We will honor all existing treaties and maintain peaceful relations with Council species. But we will no longer accept Council authority over human affairs. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Council members shouted at each other and at the screen. The idea that humans would reject Council authority was unthinkable. Admiral Zekmore's voice rose above the others. You forget your place, human. The Council has the power to destroy your pathetic little planet. President Carter's expression did not change. Admiral, I would strongly advise against that course of action. You think your few ships can stand against the entire Council fleet? Zekmore laughed. Actually, President Carter said, I think you should look out your windows. Every Council member turned to look out the chamber's large windows. Outside, where space had been empty moments before, now floated 200 human warships. They had appeared without any sensor detecting them. The most advanced early warning systems in the galaxy had not seen them coming. Admiral Vex Thara stared at the ships in shock. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected any fleet that large. Your sensors, President Carter said, are designed to detect technology you understand. You do not understand human technology. The human ships were beautiful and terrible. Sleek black hulls that seemed to bend light around them, weapons that glowed with contained energy. They moved in perfect formation like a school of predatory fish. 200 ships, Admiral Korath whispered. How many more do you have? Enough, President Carter replied. The question is not how many ships we have. The question is what happens next. Council Leader Talvar found his voice. What do you want from us? Nothing, President Carter said. We want to be left alone to manage our own affairs. In return, we will not interfere with Council business. We will honor existing trade agreements and maintain diplomatic relations. But the age of human subservience is over. Admiral Zekmore stood up. His face was red with anger. This is unacceptable. Humans are a minor species. You cannot dictate terms to the Council. Watch us, President Carter said quietly. The transmission ended. The Council chamber was silent again. Outside, the human fleet waited. Their weapons were not charged, but every Council member knew that could change in seconds. Admiral Zekmore turned to his fellow Council members. This is intolerable. We must show these humans their place. I propose we demonstrate Council power. How? Talvar asked. We disable their fleet. Show them what happens when minor species challenge the Council. Several other Council members nodded agreement. The Reptilian Coalition had the second largest fleet in Council space. Admiral Zekmore was confident in his ships and his crews. Talvar tried to object. This could lead to war. A war we might not win. Nonsense, Zekmore said. They have good technology, but we have numbers and experience. The vote was close. 7 Council members voted to demonstrate against the human fleet. 5 voted against. Admiral Zekmore smiled as he gave orders to his ships. The Reptilian Coalition fleet consisted of 150 warships. They were powerful vessels with heavy armor and advanced weapons. They had never been defeated in battle. The Coalition ships moved toward the human fleet in attack formation. Admiral Zekmore opened a communication channel to the human vessels. Human ships, you will power down your weapons and submit to Council authority. You have 30 seconds to comply. The human fleet did not respond. They continued floating in. Perfect formation, weapons still not charged. 20 seconds, Admiral Zekmore announced. Still no response from the human ships. 10 seconds, nothing. Time is up, Admiral Zekmore said. All ships, open fire. The Coalition fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, gravity bombs. Enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets shot toward the human ships. All of it missed. Not missed exactly. The weapons hit where the human ships appeared to be, but the ships were not actually there. The entire human fleet was somehow existing. in a different layer of space. Before Admiral Zekmore could understand what had happened, the human ships responded. They fired once, just once, a single pulse of energy from each ship. The coalition fleet stopped working, not destroyed, not damaged. The ships simply stopped. Their engines shut down. Their weapons went offline. Their life support systems failed. Their shields collapsed. In 17 minutes, 150 coalition warships were drifting helplessly in space. Their crews were alive, but their ships were completely dead. Admiral Zekmore found himself sitting in darkness on his flagship's bridge. The only light came from emergency systems that barely functioned. His communication officer managed to send a message using a backup system. Council Control, this is Admiral Zekmore. My fleet has been disabled. I repeat, my fleet has been disabled. The human fleet had not moved. They continued floating in the same formation, as if nothing had happened. President Carter's voice came over the communication system again. Council members, I hope this demonstration has clarified humanity's position. We do not wish to fight you, but we will not be forced to serve you either. Council Leader Talvar stepped forward. His silver skin had turned pale. President Carter, we understand your position. Good, President Carter replied. Then, we can move forward as equals. Admiral Zekmore's ships will be restored to full function in 1 hour. Consider this a gesture of good faith. The transmission ended again. True to their word, exactly. The Vega sector was filled with ships. Thousands of them stretched across space in the largest military gathering the galaxy had ever seen. On one side was the Council fleet, massive and proud. On the other side was the Hegemony Armada, dark and threatening. Admiral Tom Bradley stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the enemy fleet through the main screen. The Hegemony had brought everything they had to this battle. Planet-killer dreadnoughts that could destroy entire worlds, carrier ships holding thousands of fighters, battleships armed with weapons that could crack moons in half. Admiral, called Lieutenant Kelly Shaw. Council Command is ordering us to take point position. Tom nodded. He had expected this. The Council wanted humans to lead the attack. They wanted human ships to take the first hits from enemy weapons. They thought this would save Council lives while using up their expendable human allies. Signal all human ships, Tom said. Move to attack formation. And Kelly, send the special signal to our hidden fleet. Kelly's fingers moved over her controls. The message went out on frequencies the Council could not detect. 20 light-years away, 50 invisible human ships received their orders. They began moving toward the battle zone at maximum speed. Captain Morrison's voice came over the radio from the New York. Admiral, we're ready for Phase 4. Good, Tom replied. Remember, we stick to the plan. No matter what happens, we stick to the plan. The plan was 30 years in the making. Every detail had been thought through. Every possibility had been prepared for. Today, humanity would pay its debt to the Council, but they would pay it in a way the Council never expected. Admiral Vexithara's voice crackled over the communication system. Human forces will advance first. Draw enemy fire. Council ships will follow when it is safe. Tom kept his voice calm and respectful. Understood. Admiral, we won't let you down. The human fleet moved forward. 13 ships that looked old and weak against an enemy armada of 500 vessels. To the Council observers, it looked like suicide. They expected the human ships to be destroyed in minutes. The Hegemony fleet began to move. Their ships were beautiful in a terrible way, black hulls that seemed to absorb light, weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of hunting animals. At the center of the enemy fleet was their flagship. The Dominion was the largest ship anyone had ever built. It was 50 miles long and armed with a weapon that could destroy stars. The ship's captain was Warlord Vextar, the greatest military mind in Hegemony space. Human ships approaching, Vextar said to his officers. How many? 13 vessels, my lord, small and primitively armed. Vextar laughed. The council sends children to fight us. Destroy them quickly. Then we deal with the real threat. The hegemony ships opened fire. Thousands of energy beams shot across space toward the human fleet. It was enough firepower to destroy 100 planets, but something impossible happened. The energy beams passed right through the human ships without hitting them. What? Vextar shouted. How are they doing that? His science officer checked the sensors. My lord, the human ships are not where they appear to be. They are somehow creating false images. This was not exactly true. The human ships were exactly where they appeared to be. But they were also protected by energy fields that bent space around them. Enemy weapons hit the fields and were redirected into empty space. Tom smiled as he watched enemy fire pass harmlessly around his ship. Kelly, signal the fleet. Begin Phase 5. The human ships suddenly changed. Their old, weak appearance fell, away like a disguise. Underneath were vessels that looked nothing like what the Council expected. Sleek black hulls covered in advanced armor. Weapons that hummed with energy. Ships that moved like living things. Impossible, Admiral Vexithera whispered from her command ship. Those are not human vessels. Actually, they are, Tom said over the radio. We just made some improvements. The human ships opened fire. Their weapons were not the simple plasma rifles the Council knew about. These were quantum disruptors that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. When they hit enemy ships, those ships simply stopped existing. In 30 seconds, 50 hegemony vessels were destroyed. Warlord Vextar stared at his tactical display in shock. Those weapons? How do they have such weapons? My lord, his science officer said, our armor is useless against them. The energy frequency is unlike anything we've seen. But the real surprise was yet to come. The hegemony responded by activating their ultimate weapon. The planet-killer dreadnoughts began charging their main guns. These weapons could destroy entire solar systems. No ship could survive a direct hit. Target the human vessels, Vextar ordered. Maximum power, wipe them from existence. The dreadnoughts fired. Beams of pure destruction shot across space toward the human fleet. The energy was so intense that it turned asteroids to dust just by passing near them. The beams hit the human ships and did nothing. Not nothing, less than nothing. The energy was absorbed by the human shields and converted into power for their own weapons. Impossible, Vextar said again. But he was beginning to understand that humans specialized in doing impossible things. That was when the hidden fleet arrived. 50 ships appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the hegemony formation. One moment there was empty space. The next moment, there were advanced human warships with weapons already firing. The hegemony fleet was caught completely off guard. Ships exploded all around them. Their formations broke apart as captains tried to respond to threats that seemed to come from everywhere at once. But Tom was not done yet. Lisa, he said to Captain Thompson over the radio, deploy the virus. Captain Thompson's stealth fighter was already inside the hegemony formation. Her ship was so small and so well hidden that no enemy sensors could detect it. She flew straight toward the Dominion, the enemy flagship. Lisa was one of humanity's enhanced pilots. Her reflexes were 10 times faster than normal. Her brain was connected directly to her ship's computer systems. She could think and react at the speed of light. The Dominion's defenses were impressive. Energy shields that could stop battleship weapons, point defense systems that could shoot down missiles, armor that could survive the explosion of a star. None of it mattered. Lisa's ship slipped through the defenses like they were not there. She reached the hull of the massive ship and fired a single special weapon. It was not a bomb or a missile. It was a quantum virus, a piece of computer code that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The virus entered the Dominion's computer systems and began to spread. In seconds, it had infected every computer on the ship. In minutes, it had spread to every other ship in the hegemony fleet. The virus did not destroy the ships. It did something much worse. It turned their own systems against them. Hegemony weapons began firing on other hegemony ships. Shields shut down at random moments. Engines failed just as ships were trying to escape. The virus made every hegemony vessel fight against itself. Warlord Vextar watched in horror as his flagship's main weapon turned toward his own fleet. "Stop it!" he shouted to his officers. "Shut down the main weapon!" "I can't, my lord," his weapons officer replied. "The computer will not respond to our commands." The Dominion's planet killer weapon fired. But instead of destroying human ships, it cut through the center of the hegemony fleet. Dozens of ships were vaporized by their own flagship's weapon. Within an hour, the greatest military force in the galaxy was destroying itself. Ships that had never been defeated were being torn apart by their own technology. The proud hegemony armada became a cloud of wreckage floating in space. When it was over, only one hegemony ship remained intact. Warlord Vextar's flagship, damaged but still functional. Tom's fleet surrounded it, weapons ready. "Warlord Vextar," Tom said over the radio, "surrender your ship." "Never," Vextar replied. "I will not surrender to primitive humans." "Then you will surrender to advanced humans," Tom said. "The choice is yours." Vextar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him with fear in their eyes. Outside, human ships waited with weapons that could erase his vessel from existence. "How?" Vextar asked. "How did you defeat us so easily?" Tom smiled. "We had 30 years to prepare. 30 years to study your technology and your tactics. 30 years to build weapons specifically designed to defeat you. But you are just humans. You are supposed to be weak." "We were weak," Tom admitted. 30 years ago, we were the weakest species in the galaxy. But weakness taught us something that strength never could. It taught us to be smart. It taught us to be prepared. It taught us never to underestimate our enemies." Vextar was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke again. "I surrender. The battle was over. The hegemony threat was ended. The greatest military victory in galactic history belonged to humanity." Admiral Vexthara's voice came over the radio. She sounded confused and frightened. "Admiral Bradley, what weapons were those?" Tom looked out at the wreckage of the enemy fleet. "Standard human weapons, Admiral. We just made some improvements." The debt was paid. But Tom had a feeling that the real consequences of this battle were just beginning. Admiral Tom Bradley stood on the bridge of the human flagship Liberty. The ship looked old and simple compared to the massive council vessels around it. The Liberty's hull was scratched and dented. Its weapons looked weak. Its engines seemed slow. This was exactly what Tom wanted the council to think. Tom was 55 years old with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been fighting in space for 30 years. He knew how to make his enemies underestimate him. Today, that skill would be more important than ever. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Kelly Shaw from the communications station. "Council Fleet Command is requesting our ship roster and combat capabilities." Tom smiled. "Send them the standard report. Make sure it shows our oldest ships and most basic weapons." Kelly nodded and began typing. She was one of Tom's enhanced soldiers, though the council did not know that. To alien eyes, she looked like a normal young woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. They could not see the enhanced muscles under her uniform or the advanced computer in her brain. Around the Liberty, 12 other human ships floated in formation. They all looked simple and weak. Their names were painted in fading letters: New York, Boston, Chicago, Denver. They looked like cargo ships that someone had put guns on. Hidden in the asteroid field 20,000 miles away were the real human warships. 50 vessels with stealth technology and weapons that could destroy planets. The Council could not see them. The Council did not know they existed. Council Admiral Vexithara's voice came over the communication system. Human Admiral Bradley, you will position your vessels in the rear support group. Your role will be to assist our main fleet. Understood, Admiral, Tom replied. He kept his voice respectful and a little nervous. We're honored to serve alongside Council forces. Through the bridge windows, Tom could see the Council fleet. Hundreds of huge ships stretched across space. Zenthari dreadnoughts the size of cities. Drakmari cruisers with energy weapons that could melt asteroids. Ships from 10 other species, all armed with the most advanced technology in the galaxy, or so they thought. Admiral, called Commander Steve Wright from the sensor station, enemy contacts detected, hegemony scouts heading this way. Tom felt excitement rise in his chest. This was it. The first test. How many ships? 6 vessels. Medium-sized cruisers with heavy armor. Tom nodded. Signal the Council fleet. Tell them we're ready to assist. The Council ships moved into attack formation. They were impressive to watch. Hundreds of vessels working together like a giant machine. Their weapons charged up with deadly energy. But Tom was not watching the Council ships. He was watching his own fleet. On the surface, they looked confused and slow. But Tom could see what the aliens could not see. Every human ship was connected through quantum communication links. Every captain knew exactly what the others were thinking. The hegemony scouts arrived 20 minutes later. They were sleek black, ships with red markings. Their hulls were covered in the strongest armor anyone had ever seen. Their weapons could punch through anything. Council Admiral Vexithara opened fire first. Bright energy beams shot across space toward the enemy ships. The beams hit the hegemony vessels and did nothing. The enemy armor was too strong. Human vessels, Vexithara's voice crackled over the radio. Move to support position. Provide covering fire. Tom smiled. You heard the Admiral. All ships, attack pattern Charlie. The human ships moved forward. They looked clumsy and slow. Their first shots missed completely. The Council observers shook their heads. Human weapons were clearly too weak for this. Fight. Then something changed. The second round of human weapons fire was different. The plasma bolts were a strange blue color instead of the normal red. When they hit the hegemony ships, the enemy armor began to melt. What type of weapons are those? Admiral Koreth asked over the radio. Standard human plasma rifles, Tom answered. We made some small improvements. Small improvements. That was like calling a hurricane a small wind. The human weapons were cutting through hegemony armor like it was paper. In 30 seconds, 2 enemy ships were destroyed. But the real surprise came when the hegemony ships tried to return fire. Their targeting systems could not lock onto the human vessels. The ships were there, clearly visible, but the enemy weapons kept missing. How are they doing that? Vexithara demanded. Tom did not answer. He was too busy watching his tactical display. Every human ship was exactly where it needed to be. They moved together like dancers, each one covering the others. The remaining hegemony ships tried to retreat. Tom was not going to let that happen. Kelly, he said quietly, signal the hidden fleet. Time for Phase 2. Kelly's fingers moved over her controls. Light years away, 50 invisible human ships received the signal. They began moving toward the battle. The hegemony scouts were fast, but they were not fast enough. Human weapons reached out across space and found their targets. One by one, the enemy ships exploded. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, 6 hegemony ships were destroyed. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Not one human ship was even damaged. Admiral Vexithara's voice was different when she spoke again. There was confusion in it. Human Admiral Bradley, your performance was adequate. Adequate. Tom almost laughed. The Council still did not understand what they had just seen. Thank you, Admiral, Tom said. We were lucky. Lucky. 6 enemy ships destroyed in 12 minutes by weapons that were supposed to be primitive. Ships that moved like they could read each other's minds. Targeting systems that made enemy weapons useless. The Council called it luck. After the battle, Tom met with his ship captains in the Liberty's conference room. The room was small and plain. The table was made of simple metal. Everything looked basic and cheap. Captain Lisa Thompson commanded the stealth fighter squadron. She was a small woman with dark hair and quick hands. The enemy never saw us coming. Their sensors are blind to our stealth technology. Captain Danny Walsh had led the boarding team that captured the last enemy ship. Their soldiers fight well, but they're not enhanced like us. We moved too fast for them to follow. Tom nodded. What did we learn about their technology? Their ships are tough, but they have weaknesses, Captain Walsh said. Their power systems use quantum cores. If we can disrupt those cores, their ships shut down completely. Their armor is strong against energy weapons, Captain Thompson added. But our new plasma frequency cuts right through it. They were not prepared for that. Tom looked around the table. The Council thinks we got lucky today. Let them think that. The longer they underestimate us, the better. He stood up and walked to a wall display that showed the positions of both fleets. The real war is just beginning. The hegemony has bigger ships and more soldiers, but they have the same weakness as the Council. What weakness? Captain Thompson asked. Tom smiled. They think they know what humans can do. They think they've seen our best weapons and our best tactics. They're wrong. Outside the Liberty, the Council fleet was celebrating their victory. They had destroyed 6 enemy ships with minimal losses. They saw it as proof that their technology and tactics were superior. They did not notice that the human ships had done most of the actual fighting. They did not wonder why human weapons worked so well against hegemony armor. They did not ask how human ships moved with such perfect coordination. The Council saw what they expected to see: primitive humans getting lucky in their first real battle, adequate soldiers who might be useful in future fights. Admiral Vex Thara sent a message to Council High Command. Human forces performed within acceptable parameters. They may be useful as support troops in larger engagements. Tom read the message and laughed. Support troops. The Council had no idea that they had just watched the most advanced military force in the galaxy destroy 6 ships without breaking a sweat. Admiral, Kelly said from her station. New orders from Council Command. We're being assigned to the main assault fleet. Good, Tom said. Signal the hidden fleet. Tell them to prepare for Phase 3. Kelly's fingers moved over her controls. Across space, 50 invisible ships received new orders. They began moving toward the next battle zone. The Council wanted to use humans as expendable soldiers. They thought human ships were weak and human tactics were simple. They believed that human technology was centuries behind their own. Soon, they would learn how wrong they were. But by then, it would be too late to do anything about it. Tom looked out at the stars and smiled. 30 years ago, the Council had saved humanity from the Zephyrians. They thought this made humans grateful and loyal. Instead, it had taught humans something much more valuable. It had taught them that in this galaxy, the only species you could trust to protect you was your own. The debt was almost paid. And when it was finished, the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Nathan Cross walked through the underground halls of the Nevada Research Facility. The facility was 500 feet below the desert surface. Nobody knew it existed except for a few dozen people in the government. Nathan had been working here for 15 years. The halls were long and white. Doors led to different research labs. Behind each door, scientists worked on projects that would change everything. Nathan stopped at Lab 7. He put his hand on the scanner. The heavy door opened. Inside the lab, 20 scientists worked at computer stations. On the walls were pictures of alien ships and weapons. Nathan walked to the center of the room where a large hologram showed a 3-dimensional map of known space. Dr. Cross, called Dr. Sarah Kim. She was Nathan's assistant and one of the smartest people he knew. "The test results are ready." Nathan walked over to Sarah's station. On her screen were numbers and graphs. The numbers looked good. Very good. "The plasma rifle performed better than expected," Sarah said. "It can cut through Zenthari armor in 0.3 seconds. Council energy shields collapse after 2 seconds of sustained fire." Nathan smiled. "What about the Drakmari personal shields?" "Complete failure of their technology after 1.2 seconds, Sarah said. "Their shields were not designed to handle our plasma frequency." Nathan nodded. This was good news. For 30 years, human scientists had been studying alien technology. They had samples from the Zephyrian War. They had data from trade meetings. They had stolen information from council databases. The scientists did not just study the technology. They found ways to beat it. In another part of the lab, Dr. Mike Johnson worked on something different. Mike was an expert on alien biology. He knew how different species thought and fought. "Nathan," Mike called out, "come look at this." Nathan walked over to Mike's station. On the screen was a detailed model of a Zenthari brain. "We know that Zenthari think differently than humans," Mike said. "They make decisions as a group. Each Zenthari is connected to others through bioelectric signals. That's why they fight so well together," Nathan said. "Exactly. But it's also their weakness." Mike pointed to part of the brain model. "If we can disrupt these signals, individual Zenthari become confused. They can't function without the group connection." Nathan looked at the data. "How do we disrupt the signals?" Mike smiled. "High-frequency sound waves. We've built devices that can create the right frequency. In tests, isolated Zenthari subjects became completely helpless within minutes. This was valuable information. The Council's largest military force was the Zenthari fleet. If humans could disrupt their group thinking, the Zenthari would be much easier to defeat." Nathan left the lab and walked to another part of the facility. This area was restricted even within the secret base. Only Nathan and 5 other people could enter. The room beyond the security door was enormous. It was filled with equipment that looked nothing like normal human technology. The machines were sleek and black. They hummed with energy. At the center of the room stood a device that looked like a large metal egg. It was 20 feet tall and covered in strange symbols. Next to it stood Colonel Steve Parker. Steve was the military commander of the research facility. He was a tough man with short gray hair and cold blue eyes. He had been a soldier for 25 years. "Nathan," Steve said, "we just finished the latest test. You need to see this." Steve pressed buttons on a control panel. The metal egg began to glow. Energy crackled around it. Then something impossible happened. The egg disappeared. "Stealth technology," Steve said. "But not the kind the Council knows about. Our ships can become completely invisible. No sensors can detect them. Not energy sensors, not gravity sensors, nothing." Nathan stared at the empty space where the egg had been. "How long can ships stay invisible?" "As long as needed. The power requirements are minimal." Steve pressed another button. The egg reappeared. "We've installed this technology on 50 ships so far. The Council has no idea these ships exist." Nathan walked around the device. "What about weapons? Can ships fire while invisible?" "Yes. The stealth field adjusts automatically. Ships can attack without being detected until the weapons hit their targets." This was beyond what Nathan had hoped for. He had expected human technology to be good, enough to fight the Council. He had not expected it to be better than Council technology. Steve led Nathan to another area of the room. Here stood a man in strange armor. The armor was black and seemed to absorb light. The man wearing it was Lieutenant Danny Walsh. "Danny has been testing our enhanced soldier program," Steve said. "Show him, Danny." Danny moved faster than any human should be able to move. He crossed the room in 2 steps. He punched a steel target. The target bent like soft metal. "The armor enhances everything," Steve explained. "Strength, Speed, reflexes, even thinking speed. One enhanced soldier can do the work of 20 normal soldiers. Nathan watched as Danny lifted a weight that should have required a machine to move. How many enhanced soldiers do we have? 2,000 so far. We're training more every day. Steve smiled. The council thinks they're getting normal human soldiers. They have no idea what's coming. Nathan left the underground facility feeling better than he had in years. He drove through the Nevada desert, thinking about everything he had seen. Humanity was not the weak species the council believed them to be. Back in Washington, President Carter met with her advisors. The meeting was in a secure room deep under the White House. No alien technology could listen to what they said here. The council expects us to report to their staging area in 6 days, General Brooks said. Our transport ships are ready. What about our special ships? President Carter asked. Director Rodriguez answered. They're hidden in the asteroid belt near Jupiter. The council's sensors cannot detect them there. When the time comes, they'll be ready. Captain Morrison sat at the table with them. He had been appointed as the official human representative to the council forces. The council admirals think very little of human capabilities. They see us as primitive. Good, President Carter said. Let them keep thinking that. Amy Rodriguez opened a folder. Inside were pictures of alien ships and battle plans. Our intelligence shows that the council is losing the war against the hegemony. They're desperate. That desperation will make them careless. How careless? General Brooks asked. Careless enough to put humans in charge of important missions. They think the worst that can happen is we fail and die. They don't realize we might succeed beyond their expectations. President Carter looked around the table. 30 years ago, the council saved Earth, but they made a mistake. They thought saving us made us weak. They thought it made us grateful. They were wrong. She stood up and walked to a window that showed the White House garden above them. Saving us made us angry. It made us determined. For 30 years, we've been preparing for this day, the day we pay our debt. Captain Morrison nodded. And when we're done paying it? President Carter turned back to the table. Her eyes were hard. When we're done, the galaxy will know that humanity is not a species to be underestimated. General Brooks smiled. The council wants soldiers. We'll give them soldiers, just not the kind they expect. The meeting ended with final preparations. In 6 days, human ships would leave Earth for the staging area. The council would see small, simple vessels carrying what looked like normal human soldiers. They would not see the invisible ships following behind. They would not see the advanced weapons hidden in the cargo holds. They would not see that every human soldier was enhanced and trained to fight aliens. The council had made one critical error 30 years ago. They had assumed that saving humanity would make humans loyal to them. Instead, it had taught humans that they could never trust aliens to protect them. Humanity had spent 30 years learning to protect itself. Soon, the galaxy would see what they had learned. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the Aurora's edge. The ship moved slowly through space near the Centauri trade routes. It was a quiet day, like most days for human ships in this part of the galaxy. Jake liked quiet days. They meant no trouble. The communication system made a soft beeping sound. Jake looked at his communications officer, Lieutenant Mary Foster. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and serious eyes. Mary had been with Jake's crew for 2 years now. She was good at her job. "Captain, we have an incoming message," Mary said. "It's from the Galactic Council." Jake felt his stomach drop. Messages from the Council were never good news. In his 15 years as a captain, he had received maybe 5 messages from them. Each one had brought problems. "Put it on screen," Jake said. The main screen lit up with the symbol of the Galactic Council. It was a circle with 12 points, each point representing one of the member species. Humans were not one of those species. Humans were what the Council called a protected species. It was a nice way of saying they owned Earth. A voice spoke from the speakers. It was cold and had no emotion. Captain Morrison of the human vessel Aurora's Edge. You will report to Station Nexus Prime immediately. The Council requires payment of the debt owed by the human species. This is not a request. The message ended. The screen went black. Jake stared at it for a long moment. Behind him, he could hear his crew talking in quiet voices. They all knew what this meant. 30 years ago, the Zephyrian Empire had attacked Earth's outer colonies. The Zephyrians were a warrior race. They had big ships and powerful weapons. Earth's small fleet could not stop them. Millions of humans died in the first week of the war. Then the Galactic Council stepped in. They said they were keeping peace in the galaxy. Their massive fleets pushed the Zephyrians back. They saved Earth. But they did not do it for free. The price was simple. Humanity now owed the Council a debt. When the Council needed help, humans would provide it. The Council could call in this debt whenever they wanted. Today was that day. Jake pressed a button on his chair. Navigation. Set course for Nexus Prime. Best speed. The trip to Nexus Prime took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time reading everything he could about the current situation in the galaxy. The news was not good. A new group called the Hegemony was fighting the Council. The Hegemony had powerful ships, and they were winning battles. Nexus Prime was a huge space station. It sat at the center of Council space. Ships from dozens of different species docked there every day. The Aurora's Edge looked very small next to some of the other vessels. Jake took a shuttle to the station. With him came his first officer, Commander Lisa Rodriguez. Lisa was smart and tough. She had been in the human fleet for 12 years. She knew how to deal with aliens. The meeting room was on level 50 of the station. It was a big room with a long table. Around the table sat representatives from all 12 Council species. At the head of the table was Admiral Vex Thara. Vex Thara was a Zenthari. The Zenthari looked like giant insects. They had 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies. Vex Thara was bigger than most Zenthari. She stood almost 8 feet tall. Her black eyes showed no emotion when she looked at Jake. "Captain Morrison," she said. Her voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. "You know why you are here?" "Yes, Admiral," Jake said. "The Council is calling in humanity's debt." "Correct. The Hegemony threatens Council space. We need soldiers. Human soldiers." Jake nodded. He had expected this. "How many soldiers do you need?" "All of them," Vex Thara said. Lisa stepped forward. "Admiral, Earth's total military force is only 2 million personnel. That includes support staff and—" "We do not care about your support staff," Vex Thara cut her off. "We need fighters. Human fighters are adequate for our needs." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. Adequate. That was how the Council saw humans. They were adequate. Good enough to die for the Council, but not good enough to sit at their table. "What exactly do you want us to do?" Jake asked. Another Council member spoke up. This was Admiral Koreth of the Drakmari. The Drakmari looked like tall, thin lizards. "You will provide ground forces for our campaign against the Hegemony. Human soldiers will assault Hegemony positions while our ships provide support." Jake understood. The Council wanted humans to be the first wave. The wave that would take the most casualties. The wave that would die so Council forces could win with fewer losses. "We will need time to prepare our forces," Jake said. "You have 1 week," Vex Thara said. "Report to Fleet Admiral Zeke at the Tau Ceti staging area. Your ships will carry. Your soldiers. Do not bring your warships. They are too primitive for real combat." The meeting ended quickly after that. Jake and Lisa walked back to their shuttle in silence. Only when they were alone in the shuttle did Lisa speak. "They're going to get us all killed," she said quietly. Jake looked out the window at the Council ships docked around the station. They were huge and powerful. Their weapons could destroy planets. Next to them, human ships looked like toys. Maybe, Jake said, but we have to try. If we refuse, they'll destroy Earth. Lisa nodded. She knew this was true. The Council had destroyed other worlds that refused to pay their debts. They called it debt collection. The trip back to Earth took 3 days. Jake spent those days writing his report. He knew that when he arrived, everything would change. The quiet days were over. President Lisa Carter was waiting when Jake arrived at Earth Defense Command. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Being president during a time of alien rule was not easy. "Captain," she said, "tell me everything." Jake gave his report. When he finished, the room was quiet. Finally, General Kyle Brooks spoke up. Brooks was the head of Earth's military forces. He was a big man with white hair and scars on his hands. 2 million soldiers, Brooks said. They want all our soldiers. Yes, sir, Jake said. Director Amy Rodriguez cleared her throat. She ran Earth's intelligence services. She was younger than the others, maybe 40, with dark hair and sharp eyes. "Madam President," Amy said, "there's something you all need to know, something we've been working on for 30 years. President Carter looked at her. "What kind of something?" Amy smiled. It was not a nice smile. "The kind that's going to surprise the Council very much.